Hi everyone and welcome back to a new video on realizations. Today, studying abroad or moving abroad for work, if you get the chance to, feels like a very easy right choice for a lot of people. But growing up, I thought that only two kinds of people went abroad. People who were incredibly rich or people who were insanely smart, insanely brilliant. And honestly, I never thought that there was an in-between or that I fit either of the two options. Studying abroad wasn't even part of the conversation for me. No family member or close one in my vicinity had ever done that. I had never even heard of GRE or TOEFL. And eventually, when I got to learn about these international examinations and universities, I dismissed the whole idea because I just got to know that the fees is very high. And I thought, no, that's not an option at all. So I never researched it. I simply assumed that option is not for people like me. Looking back, that's something I regret. Not because I think I definitely should have gone abroad to study, but because I never even gave that option a chance. I did not make an informed comparison because I did not know of one whole option. Maybe I still would have chosen to study in India. Maybe I would have chosen to go abroad. We'll never know. I remember all of this now because I'm seeing a lot of people with very similar backgrounds as me, similar undergraduate degrees, building careers in very different countries. Yes, most of them come from very wealthier families than mine, but I also know people who self-sponsored their educations and did it through loans and scholarships. They just knew that this path existed early enough to prepare for it. And conversation with a few such people taught me something. For many of us, money isn't the biggest barrier, it's information. If you don't know that a door exists, you will never even think of opening it, right? That's why I'm making this video. Not to tell you that studying abroad is the right choice, but to make sure that you know that it's a choice, it's an option available. If you've ever thought about studying abroad or you don't know where to start, or you're someone just curious to know what's on this side of the road, then this video is for you. Think of it like a beginner's guide to studying abroad. By the end of this video, you'll get to know about the different programs offered abroad, different degrees, which exams do you need to give for which path, and how do you compare between studying abroad and studying in India. If you like this video or get to learn anything new, then definitely subscribe. Won't take more than 2 seconds for you, but it encourages me to keep creating videos like this. Now let's begin. When people hear the word study abroad, they just think of an MS or an MBA in America. At least that was the case for me. But the whole picture is much bigger than that. There are many undergraduate and postgraduate programs offered by countries like the US, UK, Canada, Australia, Singapore, Ireland, Germany, several other European Union countries. To keep the scope of this video within reach, I'll only be talking about some of the most common master's degrees, which include Masters in Science, Masters in Engineering, Masters in Data Science, Masters in Finance, Masters in Management, and MBA, which is Masters in Business Administration. Each one of these serves a very different career goal. Let's look at each of these degrees in detail. Masters in Science. This is a specialized research or course-heavy degree in a very specific technical or scientific field. Think engineering, computer science, physics, etc. It's the default choice of engineering graduates who want to go deep into a specialization rather than a general management degree. The most common countries considered for an MS are USA, Canada, Germany, Australia. Germany is very unique here because of its near zero tuition at public universities. The duration is roughly between 1 to 2 years. Now, the exam requirements, you typically need a GRE plus an English proficiency exam like IELTS or TOEFL. Next comes Master of Engineering. This is a more applied and professional variant of the MS, less research oriented and more practical oriented. Often includes a capstone project or industry placement instead of a thesis. The most common countries are the USA, UK, Canada, Germany. The duration is approximately 1 year after a bachelor's in engineering. So yeah, that's a requirement. The exam requirements are also similar to MS. Most usually a GRE with English proficiency tests like the IELTS or TOEFL. This is the right pick for you compared to an MS if you want a shorter, more industry-facing engineering credential rather than something very research-heavy. The next is Masters in Data Science. This is a relatively new degree but very high in demand because it combines subjects like statistics, machine learning, programming, applied analytics, and it's open to a wide range of undergraduate background students. Engineering, mathematics, statistics, even commerce if you have strong quant skills, which makes it one of the more accessible degrees for people who have not done a undergraduate in computer science. The most common countries are USA, Canada, UK, Germany. The exam required is most usually GRE, but many programs have dropped it in favor of students with a very strong quant background or portfolio and projects. Again, English test is mandatory. Next comes Masters in Management. It's a very general business degree built specifically for fresher graduates with little to no experience, covering finance, marketing, strategy, consulting foundations. Think of it as an MBA for beginners. This is usually the right fit for freshers with no work experience yet wants a business track career. The most common countries are France, UK, Spain, and Germany. The duration of this degree can be anywhere between 10 months to 2 years. The exam requirements are GMAT and GRE for most schools, but some schools have made it optional. One thing that I realized while I was researching for this video is that studying abroad isn't just about clearing the exam. There are so many other essential paths. Which country makes the most sense for you? Which universities are actually realistically possible for your profile? Should you take the GRE or the GMAT? How will you finance your loan? What are the chances of getting a visa? You have to figure all of this out before you decide to study abroad. LeapScholar is a platform that supports students throughout their study abroad journey. From helping you shortlist universities and prepare for exams like IELTS, TOEFL, GRE, GMAT, to application support, SOPs, education loan, visa, accommodation, and even guiding you once you receive your admit. But the part that I genuinely wanted to highlight is their free one-on-one consultation sessions. In fact, before agreeing to include them in this video, I booked a demo session myself with them because I wanted to see that what's the first conversation like. Because a lot of the times, this free first call usually ends up becoming a very sales call where they try to convince you to buy a package. But that was not my experience with LeapScholar. My advisor actually spent a lot of time understanding my profile, explaining to me the different options available, and was refreshingly honest. Instead of pushing a solution, she actually walked me through the pros and cons of different university choices, different country choices. And I genuinely came out of the call learning something new. And that's the reason why I'm recommending it, even though I have limited experience in this space. Even if you're just thinking about studying abroad, I think booking that pre-counseling session with them could be a great place to start. Even if you decide not to go ahead, you'll at least learn something new and understand your options better. I've added all the relevant links and free resources in the description of the video below. If you're interested, do try out their free counseling session. It's free, no obligations, and I think it'll give you more clarity about which path makes more sense to you. Now let's get back. Now comes the MBA. It's a full general management degree built for people with 3 to 5 years of work experience. Yes, that's the minimum work experience you need for an MBA abroad. And this is a program for people who are already working but want to move to more senior roles towards strategy or leadership or pivot into a different field altogether. Countries, it's basically offered everywhere, but the most famous countries where people move from India are USA, UK, and increasingly more and more countries of the EU. The IESE, INSEAD, LSE are the most big ones for Europe. The duration can be 1 or 2 years. Exam requirements. The most common is GMAT, but a lot of schools have already started taking GRE scores as well. Plus, you need a very strong profile and work experience. Recommendations, LORs, those are mandatory. This is the most experience and story dependent of all the degrees I mentioned and not just based on one test score. Next comes PhD or Doctor of Philosophy. This is a research only degree. Can be anywhere between 4 to 6 years where you are supposed to research and come up with original work. There's no fixed coursework as such like the master's program. You're basically doing like supervised research under a specific professor who is your guide or your advisor. It's well suited for people who know they want to get very deep into researching something very, very specific. Countries, USA is the biggest hub and offers the most funded PhD programs. And keep in mind that PhDs are the only programs where you get paid for your entire study term. Other countries with strong PhD programs are the UK, Germany, Canada, and all of these fund your PhDs. The exam requirement is GRE. There are also subject-specific GREs like in physics or maths, which are sometimes required separate from the general GRE. Plus, the English proficiency test, IELTS or TOEFL, is also standard everywhere. Okay, so I mentioned all of these different exams in part 1. If you're just like me, you would be curious to know what are these exams, what do they ask? And we'll be covering that in this section. Before we get into these exams, there's one thing I want to tell you upfront. In India, we are conditioned to believe that the exam score is everything. But that's not the case when you're choosing to study abroad. Your score is just one part of the big puzzle. Your essays, letter of recommendations, research work experience, the whole profile and the story that you build, all of this becomes a much more important part in international selections. The first exam is the GRE, or the Graduate Record Examination. It's a general graduate admission test used for MS, many MIM programs, and increasingly accepted as a substitute for GMAT for MBA programs as well. The fee is $220 USD, roughly 22,500. Coming to the structure of this examination, it has 3 sections: verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and analytical writing. It's roughly 2 hours long with an adaptive design. Number of attempts, you can attempt it 5 times in a rolling 12-month period in a gap of 21 days. And there's no lifetime limit, and each score is valid for 5 years. The next is the GMAT, which is the Graduate Management Admission Test. Who is it for? It's the core MBA admission test, also accepted by a growing number of MIM programs and Master of Finance programs. The fees is $275 USD at a test center and $300 USD for the online version. Roughly comes to around 25,000 to 29,000 rupees after tax. The structure, this again has 3 equally weighted sections: quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and data insights, with a total duration of 2 hours 15 minutes. In the new format, there are no essays. The number of attempts are the same as the GRE, with a 16 to 21 day gap in between. There is a cap on the lifetime maximum number of attempts, which is 8, and each score is valid for 5 years. The next exam is the IELTS, which is the International English Language Testing System. This is to check your English proficiency when you're going to study in an English-speaking country. It's accepted across UK, Canada, USA, and was also required for a lot of visa applications in those countries. The fee is roughly around 19,000 rupees. The exam is 2 hours 45 minutes in total, covers listening, reading, writing, and speaking. There's no cap on the number of attempts. The next exam is TOEFL, which stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language. Again, an English proficiency test preferred by USA, Japan, South Korea. The fee is around 18,000 rupees. The TOEFL just had a redesign, and now the total test duration is roughly 90 minutes. Again, unlimited retakes allowed with a 3-day gap, and each score is valid for 2 years. Now you might be thinking, thanks for all this detailed information, Ria, but who will tell me if I should study abroad? Isn't a good master's degree or an MBA in India good enough? Well, it depends. It depends on what you're optimizing for. Because there isn't a very straightforward answer to study in India versus study abroad. There are trade-offs on both sides. And let me explain these trade-offs to you. And let's start with something that surprised me the most, which is the admissions. Getting into one of the top B schools in India is academically and statistically one of the hardest things you can do. Every year, approximately 3 lakh students write the CAT. And the number of seats in the top tier B schools is a very tiny fraction of that 3 lakh, 2 lakh students. Acceptance rates of roughly 1 to 2%. Compare it to the selection rates of the reputed global B schools. Even the most competitive ones like Harvard, Stanford have a selection rate of anywhere between 6 to 12%. Now, we can't just compare these raw numbers. You have to understand that it's not that everyone can apply to Harvard or Stanford or these top B schools. You have to have substantial work ex, a good profile, good academic background to be even able to apply for these schools. So that number, that 6% number, isn't directly comparable to 1% selection rates in India. Another thing is that CAT is very exam driven. There's this one exam, and your score in that exam is the biggest factor in deciding whether you will get admitted or not. But international admissions are much more holistic, which means if you play around with a lot of the other variables other than the exam, your chances of getting in could be higher. Now, coming to the biggest question, the cost. An MBA in India from the top B schools could cost you anywhere between 25 to 35 LPA or more if ISB, depending on the institution. But when we talk about abroad, you're looking anywhere between 60 lakhs to close to 2 crore rupees, especially in the US, after you include the tuition as well as the living expenses. Plus all these exams that I just mentioned, as well as the counseling fee, the advisor fee, just getting into the school will also cost you much more before you even start the degree. So the difference is huge. But don't just stop your calculation here, because the salaries are also much higher abroad. One mistake that people make is they directly convert a dollar to a rupee or a euro to a rupee. and be like, wow, even the salaries are in crores. Yes, agreed. But you also have to account for cost of living and PPP, which is purchasing power parity. How much can a dollar get you in the US versus how much can a rupee get you in India? Rent, healthcare, food, taxes, all of these will be higher. So instead of just blatantly asking what's the salary there, but a better determinant would be a comparison after it has been normalized by purchasing power parity. But even after this normalization, I've heard this from my friends living abroad, that the saving potential is much higher outside, even after the expenses being very high. Now, coming to placements, which is again a very big cultural shock for Indians. In India, especially top B schools, the placements are very structured. The institutes, they organize placement drives, placement season, where they try their best to get each and every student placed. But abroad, this kind of a system does not exist. Universities definitely help, but there is no guarantee. The only thing they help with is networking events, resume reviews, maybe organizing campus fairs and things like that. No one guarantees you a placement even in Harvard or Stanford. And there you have to rely on yourself, on your network, on reaching out to alumni, on having coffee chats, very aggressively reaching out and applying and continuously interviewing. So if you're someone who can only survive in a structured process, India definitely gives you the advantage. But if you're someone who's comfortable putting yourself out there, building opportunities for yourself, doing projects, interviews, coffee chats, then you would enjoy the international system. And finally, lifestyle. This is something which is most difficult to qualify and one of the biggest reasons why people want to study abroad. In general, many of the countries that I just mentioned are first world countries, and they provide a much better work-life balance. Cleaner cities, cleaner airs, stronger public infrastructure, and more predictable systems. And for Indians, that's a very big thing. And of course, every country is different with its own set of problems and challenges. But for a lot of people, money and earning more isn't just a big factor, but living differently, living a higher quality of life becomes the final deciding factor. Okay, so after we've covered everything, should you study abroad? Maybe, maybe not. And honestly, that was not the question that I wanted this video to answer. I just wanted to introduce you to an option that I did not know existed during my time. And I don't want you to be in that position, that you did not even know about an option, not because you researched it and realized that it's not an option for you, but just because of ignorance. Maybe after doing your own research, you will realize that studying in India gives you the best ROI and gives you exactly the career you want. Or maybe you will discover that a master's abroad or an MBA abroad aligns with the quality of life or the kind of career you want to build for yourself. Both are very valid choices. The important thing here is that it's your choice, not one made because you never knew another path existed. If you found this helpful, definitely like, comment, share, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if there's any particular topic you'd want me to cover more in detail. Till then, all the best. Bye bye.